Hi guys, Alastair Campbell, a former spokesman for Tony Blair and who also used to work for the Mirror tabloid newspaper, was the lone voice of reason when it came to the Hugh Edwards affair. You have a right-wing newspaper, The Sun, attempting to make as much hay as possible out of this story. And they're not doing this for the public good or in the public interest. When Britain is facing a mortgage disaster, a cost of living crisis, political corruption, collapsing private companies being bailed out by the taxpayer, or even a former Prime Minister refusing to hand over evidence to a committee, Campbell is right here when suggesting that those on the outside looking in must think Britain is only concerned with one issue. Have a listen.
Alastair Campbell, I just wondered if you could reflect for a moment just what the significance of Hugh Edwards being named is tonight.
Well, Hugh Edwards is a big figure within the BBC. And if you were to name half a dozen people that would be identified as the face of the BBC, Hugh Edwards would be one of them. And I think that's one of the reasons why The Sun has been pursuing this story and trying to bring him down, because it's about a bigger battle where the right-wing newspapers want to do down the BBC. And
is that really what you see going on here?
I think it's definitely part of it. And interestingly there, when you say that, we've asked The Sun to come on, that's not how they operate. They have their own agenda. They pursue their own agenda and their own stories relentlessly. And I think, I agree with a lot of what Roger Bolton said there, but I do think the BBC has slightly played into the hands of The Sun on this one, because frankly, honestly, I think most people from outside the UK watching our media over the last few days just think we've become a bit of a ridiculous country. You've got the NATO summit going on. You've got a mortgage crisis. You've got a former prime minister refusing to hand over his phone in defiance of a high court order. And you'd think there was only one thing happening in the country.
OK, let me just put back to you what The Sun have said, because they say that all the way along they've been reporting the concerns of parents trying to stop payments to a vulnerable child funding a life-risking drug habit. And they've said that this story was always in the public interest. And add to that, it's not just The Sun reporting on this story. The BBC has reported on allegations of its own about inappropriate behaviour.
I'm not saying that it's not a story. I'm not saying that it's not something worthy of reporting and investigation. I'm talking about the complete loss of any sense of perspective that we get. And let's be absolutely frank, the idea that The Sun sits there as some kind of social worker looking after the interests and welfare of parents, they want a big story about a big name within the BBC.
That's it. Isn't it disgraceful? And it reminds me of Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage goes out to the beach with his, his Fisher-Price binoculars, and he gets the media to come out and follow him. The Sun does the same thing. The Sun is using this story as a tool to whip up anger with the BBC. They're in a battle with the BBC. Murdoch has been in a battle with the BBC for decades now. He wants to replace it with his own private model. So they have to run down the BBC as much as possible. Now, is there a story here? Yes, there is. But as Alastair Campbell pointed out here, there has to be some perspective. This is not the only thing that people should be concerned about. But it distracts, it helps the government in a sense, because it distracts from the failures of the Tories over the last 13 years and the problems people are facing at the moment. But it also gives right-wing newspapers a chance to take, pot shots at the BBC. But it helps the likes of The Sun sell more newspapers. So there's profit to be made here from this story. And this is going to be something that's going to run for a number of days, at least. But the way that all of the media outlets are following it is just bizarre. There are issues that are affecting ordinary people every day, and these are not getting any coverage. I'm not saying that this story doesn't deserve any coverage. I'm saying it doesn't deserve the amount of coverage that it's getting. In respect to stories like the cost of living crisis, people who are going to lose their homes, people who will not be able to pay mortgages and sell off their homes, and will result in people who are in rented accommodation losing their homes. Along with the cost of living crisis, job losses, the causes, the damage Brexit is doing to the economy, where businesses are going to the wall. or moving overseas. This is all being put to one side to cover this one issue. And it serves some people's interest. It serves the government's interest because it's a distraction. It serves the likes of the Sun newspaper or other right-wing outlets where they can attack the BBC. And of course, it's also profit-driven. It sells newspapers. It sells advertising space. But at least somebody's calling it out. Alastair Campbell is. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.